what I'll do is I'll let Sentinel has people here that I think can address as a company what they do and what they offer in terms of training, what they require. But let me mention a couple things because you raised a couple of, I think, important issues. First of all, you know, yes, probation officers are just regular people that are doing this as an occupation. They're supposed to have training and background and experience in this. And yes, I as a judge rely upon their judgment many times in terms of telling me what should be done in an individual case because they've had an ongoing relationship or experience with the person. At the same time, the buck stops here. I'm an elected official. This community puts faith in me to do the right thing. Can I say as a judge that I've done the right thing every single time? I'm sure I haven't, but I sure have tried. Now, here's the situation. I think you can speak to this from personal experience. I often have folks who have drug and alcohol problems in court. In fact, I would say that if you eliminated drug and alcohol problems, I would see, maybe 10% of the people I do in court. That's probably about it, 10%. And I say that because I see people arrested for shoplifting, but sometimes they're stealing for drugs. I see people with family violence, but sometimes the family violence is based on drugs and alcohol. I see people for DUI, and at the root of the DUI may be a problem with not just alcohol, but another substance. It's like the roots of the tree. It can branch, and you may not see it because it's under the ground, but those roots are still there. And there's something that if the court can deal with it, I think the court has a responsibility. I can't always because I'm limited by the law. I'm limited by what options I have available to me as a judge. But one thing you said that really struck a chord with me just then was, if as a judge, if as a probation officer, they put you in jail, okay, because you test positive for cocaine. Now, you have to again look at the individual situation. Let's say you're on probation for driving under the influence. Let's take that as an example. I'm not saying you were, because obviously I don't remember your specific case. But let's say someone's on probation for DUI and they test positive for cocaine. They go in the office, they're given a drug screen, they test positive for cocaine. What is, and I don't care whether they're a private company or they're a state entity, what is their responsibility to the community and to that individual with regard to that positive screen? The immediate problem I see is if they do nothing in the immediacy and that person walks out the door, gets behind the wheel of a car and kills someone, there's going to be some phone calls made. It's going to be on the front page of the newspaper. There's going to be some heads rolling. We would all agree. And there should be. Because they have a responsibility to the community and to that person. I say oftentimes in court, I have loved ones. You all have loved ones driving on the streets. You do not want them killed by a drunk driver. So there is a responsibility there, whether you're a private company, whether you're a state entity. That's number one. Number two, for that individual person, I say this to you. What I have found, and it's not true in every case, and I'm speaking in generalities here, regardless of who you are, your race, your sex, your religion, your background, rich or poor, it doesn't matter. Often to be able to be receptive to the ultimate recovery that you can receive from drugs and alcohol, you've got to reach rock bottom. You've got to be in a position where you say, you know what, Judge, I'm going to surrender. I've been running this my way. I've been doing it my way, but I'm going to surrender now and get the help I need. For some people, that's faith-based help, and that's an important part of it. For some people, it is not. Different people respond to different things. But sometimes I see as a judge that they do need to get to that point in their lives in order to be receptive in their heart to open to that as a solution. Now that doesn't mean throwing somebody in jail and throwing away the key. It means what you experienced in your life, which is you didn't want to be in jail. And therefore what Judge Edwards said to you seemed a little more appealing because you said, you mean I can get out of this place? And at the same time I'm helping myself and I'm helping my family and I'm helping my community? Because if you're free of drugs and alcohol, you can be all those things. You can be productive to the community, to your family, to yourself. That ought to always be the goal, right? Now, listen, I've worked with different probation companies over the years. I've worked with different probation officers over the years. Probation officers are like lawyers and judges and sheriffs and city managers. Some are good and some are not, right? That's just part of life. You have to hope that companies, be they private companies or whether they be public entities, will continue to strive to have the best employees possible. That's what we ought to always be after. And that's hopefully what they're doing, because I look at them for responsibility. At the same time, let me say to you that part of their responsibility is to hold that individual accountable pursuant to the judge's sentence. What, again, oftentimes the general community doesn't see is the parents who call me and they're upset because probation didn't issue a warrant when their child was on drugs and didn't force them to do what they were supposed to do, and now they're upset because the child is in a worse situation. There's that end of it too. Okay? But let them tell you about the training part of it. Mr. Quinn, you want to tell them?
I'm Steve Quinn, I'm the Director for Superintendent Services here in Georgia. I appreciate the questions we get all the time about how someone becomes a probation officer with our company or with a private company versus a state probation agency or any other agency. Many of the requirements are very similar. We are a highly regulated industry by the state of Georgia through the Administrative Office of the Courts, and educational requirements and other requirements someone has to possess before we can even consider to hire them as a probation officer with our company and serve a court in Williams County. Additionally to that, there's minimal training standards that we have to adhere to. The minimum state training requirements governed by the state is 40 hours of initial training, and they begin the job and 20 hours of training each calendar year thereafter. Our company provides 160 hours of initial training. Including in that is both cultural diversity and multicultural training. It goes to some of the issues that you say. That's not even required by the state of Georgia, but it's something that we think is important. We've included in our curriculum. That's why our curriculum is much more.
Could you comment on the pros and cons of that?
I'm not sure that I have enough background. I have an opinion, of course. There's always some concern when someone outside of the area is making decisions for you, because they don't know what your particular situation is and some of the things that might have an impact on it. So that certainly becomes a major concern up front. But on the other side of that, there is somebody who can prevent some things from happening that would not have happened if they didn't have somebody outside watching over them. So that's kind of the other side of that. I think that you could have strong arguments on both sides. I have concerns about the schools, what they do, and who can get into the schools. That makes a difference. It's often people who need the school the most, particularly charter type schools, don't get into the schools. And so the question is, what's being accomplished? Are you making things better for people who already have some advantages, or are you really helping the people who are in need? And if we're going to address some of the things that Larry talked about in terms of the need for employment and people who can get jobs, we've got to help the people who need the help most. Because either you will become part of the solution, as you used to say in the 60s, or part of the problem. And so what you want to do is to be a part of the solution. The more failures you have, the least confidence you have in your ability to turn things around, and there's nothing worse than a hopeless person. So I think that's an important part of that.
Okay.